Good morning. This is Dawn Clevisall with Stress Free Bookkeeping. So happy to have you here today. We are reading from Profit First for E-commerce sellers. Transform your e-commerce business. This is chapter 3. Chapter 3 is called Stop the Inventory Insanity. Before I get started, I just wanted to mention that I'm using StreamYard to stream the video into Facebook and onto, I think it's also going to YouTube. And if you're on Facebook and you want to ask questions, I would really encourage you to do that. But you need to make sure that you enable StreamYard so that I can see your name. If you don't, I can still see your question. It's just going to be where I can't see your name until the broadcast is actually posted onto Facebook, and then I can reply to you there. So just keep that in mind. Without further ado, Chapter 3, Stop the Inventory Insanity. Some e-commerce sellers enter the business believing that inventory is straightforward and easy to understand. It ain't that simple. And many sellers go belly up because they never get a handle on how to manage the inventory in a profitable way. An easy way to begin to better understand your inventory is to use a separate bank account for all of your inventory related purchases. Simply separating out your inventory funds is an important step to being able to replenish inventory without borrowing money and without using money that's designated for other purposes. This strategy relies on Parkinson's law, which is the basis of the small plates principle. In 1955, a modern philosopher named C. Northcote Parkinson came up with the counterintuitive Parkinson's law, that demand for something expands to match its supply. In economics, this is called induced demand. It's why expanding roads to reduce traffic congestion never works in the long term, because more drivers always show up in their cars to fill those extra lanes. Similarly, if your client gives you a week to turn around a project, you're likely to take an entire week. But if they give you just a day, you'll make it happen in a day. You see, the more we have of something, the more of it we consume. And this is true for anything: food, time, even toothpaste. Here's why it's fascinating. Parkinson's law triggers two behaviors when supply is scant. When you have less, you do two things. The first is obvious. You become frugal. When there's less toothpaste in the tube, you use less to brush your teeth. That's just the obvious part. But something else far more impactful happens. You become extremely innovative and find all sorts of ways to extract the last drop of toothpaste from the tube. If there's one thing that will forever change your relationship with money, it is the understanding of Parkinson's law. You need to intentionally make less toothpaste money available to brush your teeth, operate your business. When there is less, you will automatically run your business more frugally. That's good. And you'll run your business with far more innovatively, which is great, right? That's what we all want to do. Carol, an early adopter of Profit First, agreed right away with the need for a separate account for inventory. She explained, "We decided to add an additional account just for inventory. Initially, there was only a single account for expenses, which is how Mike has it set up for basic Profit First methodology. For me, I felt like inventory was too big of a number just to lump in with all of the other expenses. It helps, especially when you've got seasonal products. You build your balance up so that there's plenty of money to buy the inventory when you need to ramp up for the season. The other thing I really like about having inventory and operating expenses separate is that it keeps me from spending willy-nilly on all kinds of potential marketing opportunities. There's tons and tons of ways I could spend money on advertising and promotions." Carol found out right away that having a separate account kept her focused when it came to spending. The inventory account is sacred because without inventory, there's nothing to sell. Inventory in general is challenging for clients. Mark described his biggest issue as an Amazon seller. "The number one issue I've faced since I've started has been inventory management. Surprisingly, learning how to find a product, get it made in China, do the quality control, and get things shipped to America or whatever country I'm selling in at the time. The stuff has been pretty easy overall. Certainly there are little issues here and there, but the big nuts to crack for me have been how to order enough or not order too much, how to predict how much money I'm going to need to fill the warehouse. Those are the things that I struggle with. Planning for Christmas, how soon do we need to start increasing orders? How much do I have to order? How are my sales going to be? These are the kind of things that only get after years of data. Now I feel like I probably have enough data to make smarter decisions, but still, it's sort of a struggle. Mark points out the hidden benefit of Profit First. One, that's particularly useful for e-commerce sellers, right? He notes that it's data, good, reliable, long-term data that empowers us to make better business decisions. With its small plates approach, Profit First makes slicing and dicing that data simpler. Much is outside of our control when it comes to inventory, so it's smart to focus on what we can control. In this chapter, we're going to concentrate first on the cash flow aspects of inventory management. If you're starting out with a new business, you have the perfect opportunity to start out right. Presumably, you have some initial capital that you used to fund your initial inventory buy. With the first payout, you should set aside funds to replenish your inventory. The amount you set aside will be based on the total cost of products you just sold. If you need help determining the cost of your products, there's a spreadsheet template that you can download to ensure that you consider all costs, and you can find that at www.profitfirstecom.com. Most of our clients are using either a spreadsheet or software as a service, SaaS, inventory solution, such as Inventory Lab, Telemetrics, Teikametrics, Skubana, or Seller Cloud, to name several. When you receive a payout from Amazon, you'll calculate the inventory cost of the items sold during the payout period. You'll move these dollars into your inventory bank account. You repeat this process with every Amazon payout. After 2 or 3 months, you can set a target allocation percentage using the monthly cash flow spreadsheet. For the first few months, you do the actual calculation so that you can get a feel for your numbers. ROI, gross margin, and economics of one unit. Experienced sellers know inventory is complex. How do you know which products to sell? What will it cost you to acquire new products? How much inventory do you start with? How much should you price your products, and where do you get the capital to fund those inventory buys? Unlike a traditional retailer, you often don't or won't see the products that you are selling. All the tactile data points are missing if you're using a wholesale or private label business model. Fortunately, Amazon and most other e-commerce business platforms provide lots of data to help you. But what data should you pay attention to? A cottage industry has cropped up for Amazon coaches who can help you navigate the maze of managing inventory. Robin Johnson, CEO of The Best of the Nest, is a profit-first professional. Her advice is, when sourcing, look for products that have a return on investment of at least 40% and slowly raise that to 50 and 70% as you get more skilled. This means you'll spend more time sourcing than some of your other counterparts that are looking for lower returns on their investment, ROI. Watch your gross margins to ensure that your repricing software and other costs of sales have not eroded your profit margin. Also, consider the economics of one unit to ensure that each product is contributing to cover your operating costs. Robin covers a lot in her typical insightful, rapid-fire fashion, so let's break it down and make sure that we glean every bit of wisdom. First, let's examine ROI. Amazon sourcing apps look at an item and make comparisons between it and other products currently being sold on Amazon. You enter the cost of your purchase to purchase your product, and it will calculate the estimated Amazon fees and suggest a selling price based on the current selling price of the same product. Based on the typical sales price, cost of the product, and fees, the app can give you an estimated profit on that product. This is your return on investment. To calculate ROI manually, you take the profit of the product, you divide it by the cost of the product, then multiply this by 100 to get a percentage. This calculation is net of Amazon fees. When you make this calculation at the time you are considering purchasing a unit to sell, you need to be realistic in estimating your selling price. Evaluate your return on investment in several different scenarios. 1, at the product level. Missing 2, hold on. Up to at the portfolio level, encompassing all products. 3, at the product level for the products that make up the top 10% of revenue. And 4, at at the product level for the products that make up the bottom 10% of revenue. Understanding return on investment for your entire portfolio is important if you are trying to gauge which products will bring you a great return enough to help fund your operating expenses. It's too easy to get excited about a single product that shows 80% return on investment and believe it will carry through and boost overall portfolio. Below is an example of a client's return on investment for a product that can make the top 10% of revenue. This client told me his buying strategy was a return on investment of 80%, and he was concerned that the gross margin on his books was much lower at 20%. When I examined the return on investment data, it was clear the entire portfolio only had 33% return on investment in total, which was much closer to the gross margin. There's a chart in the book if you are following along with the book. There. While this example is for one client, it is a common concern that we hear when we clean up books for clients. They have an expectation regarding the return on investment number, and when we present the books, the gross margin number is actually significantly lower. There are many reasons for this gap. The first is illustrated by the client example above. The client used a few good return on investment products and painted the entire portfolio with this broad brush. Secondly, the inventory system used to track return on investment may not include all of the costs that they are manually calculated and loaded into the system. Most inventory systems rely on direct data input, which means data are not tied back to the source documents. This leaves room for calculation and transcription errors. It's easy to forget the cost of shipping or packaging, for example. Accounting system transactions are traced back and reconciled with outside statements provided by your financial institution, and this reconciliation step ensures that they are accurate. Finally, return on investment calculations are typically made at the time of purchase, and repricing the product over the time it is sold will give you a different actual return on investment. If you're using return on investment to make major purchase decisions, periodically check it against the gross margin and understand the relationship between the two calculations. A big part of becoming a successful e-commerce seller and fundamental lesson of Profit First is learning to rely on numbers rather than feelings about how your company is performing. Mark explained how he uses numbers to guide his decision making. I generally try to stay at 30% margin for all my products. If it's under 30%, it really starts to not look super attractive, he said. I have a couple of products now that aren't costing me any money, but they're not making money. I could just keep them, and I might, but I also don't want to keep them if they're just there. They cost me some brain capacity. They cost me my employee brain capacity. Maybe we should just use that for something else. Also, I know that when you have something that's lower in profit, then it also takes more cash flow to be committed to that product. So it's just not as fun. So yeah, I try to stay at 30%. Jeremy finds another issue is tracking the cost of a product over time. He explains, each batch order of a product may have a unique price because of the quantity ordered or changing component costs, etc. In addition, Amazon may change their fees during the time when your product is in their warehouse. Monitoring these numbers gives you the ability to adjust your pricing and maintain your margins. During the initial product evaluation, ensure that the market will allow you to price your product high enough to maintain adequate margins when price erosion occurs because of competition, Amazon fee changes, etc. Run scenarios for selling at X, Y, and Z price points to ensure profitability at all levels. Another gem of Robin's is her advice to ensure the economics of one unit is considered at the time of sourcing. Here's how you do it. First, pick a month to analyze and calculate all of your fixed costs for that month. Next, look at how many total units you sold during the same month. This is the profit and loss with fixed cost highlighted and averaged for 8 months over the covered reporting period. This is a chart in the book. So they're showing a profit and loss statement here with some of the areas highlighted for you. Okay, let's see. All right, I'm just reading. I think it's still Okay, so I don't know if I should read this part out loud or not. Okay, every order has to result in, okay, so they're looking at the economics of the 1 unit using this calculation. Every order has to result in a sales price of 2.5 times the purchase to break even. An order of the product that costs $7 must sell for more than $7 times 2.5 or $17.50 to break even. Next, divide the total fixed costs by the total units sold. To get this report from the seller at Amazon, select Reports, Fulfillment, All Orders. Then select Download tab, Order Date, and your date range. For this example, I looked at all orders for the same 8 months of the profit and loss, January through August. If you have a large number of orders each month, I suggest running a report a month at a time and then averaging them. Once you download the report, filter the spreadsheet by item status, column N, selecting only items shipped. Then use the AutoSum function to total all shipped units in the quantity column, which is column O. This will give you the value of each item sold and can contribute to cover your fixed operational costs. When you evaluate your return on investment, make sure the profit component is large enough to more than cover the economics of 1 unit value. Look at 2 or 3 months to see how this number varies. Then select the value that will ensure you will be covering your fixed costs when you apply it against your product's estimated return on investment. Sourcing using return on investment and the economics of 1 unit can help you make good inventory purchasing decisions. But there's one other area that you must monitor to ensure you are buying inventory that actually sells and doesn't just sit on the shelf at an Amazon warehouse. Robin advises her clients to monitor their total inventory at Amazon over 90 days as a percentage of total inventory value. If this number stays at the same percentage or is growing, you are not scaling correctly. Your buying decisions should be moving towards quicker inventory returns. Watch this number every month to ensure your cash flow is not stuck in stale inventory. To get this number, pull the inventory age report from the Seller Central. This is inside of Amazon. Within Seller Central, select the following tabs: Fulfillment, then Inventory, Show More, Inventory Age. Add a column and insert your product costs for each SKU. Add a column to calculate the value of inventory on hand, multiply product costs times available quantities. Add another column to calculate the value of inventory over 90 days. Multiply product costs times the quantities of products in columns 91 to 180 days, 181 to 270 days, 271 to 365 days, and 365 days plus. See the partial report that follows. Note that the value of the inventory over 90 days is 2,461, and the total inventory value is 3,178. To get your percentage of inventory that is over 90 days old, divide the value of your inventory over 90 days by the total inventory value. So that would be the 2,461 divided by the 3,178, and that equals 77%. And then there's a chart in the book. If you're following along, you're on the next page with the chart. And that's just showing the report that we just spoke about, how to generate that for you inside of the Seller Central. This example, shown as it displays from Amazon, illustrates inventory that is not moving naturally. The seller is looking for ways to turn the stale inventory into cash, and such data becomes more meaningful when tracked over time. Week by week, a seller can determine if efforts to improve. Week by week, a seller can determine if efforts to remove stale inventory are successful, or if other approaches should be tested. This type of data should be recorded and monitored as part of your key performance indicators. I'm going to read that again. So week by week, a seller can determine if efforts to remove stale inventory are successful or if other approaches should be tested. This type of data should be recorded and monitored as part of your key performance indicators. And you'll hear people say KPI. That's what they're talking about, key performance indicators. Using the economics of one unit helps you look at your business from a high level. It gives you a place to start. Mark recalls a consultation he had with a part-time COO. We just did a one-time deep dive into my business, and one of the experiments we ran together was to take all of my overhead and apply it to my products. So say my product has a 35% margin. He pointed out with HR and all of the other costs that aren't obvious in the reporting tools that I use, it's actually a 16% margin. Nobody ever talks about that. First of all, most people didn't even know that. Even I didn't know that. That's when we started to run the numbers. And some of the products actually looked unprofitable. Those that look like they're barely above water, now once you factor in all of the overhead costs, they're below water. And that was really interesting. Funding your inventory bank accounts. If you have been in business a while, you can get your inventory funding number from your cash flow spreadsheet that we presented in the previous chapter. Since the monthly cash flow spreadsheet is for 1 month, evaluate that number against your cost of goods sold number on the profit and loss if you have access to the information in your accounting system. Many of our clients use other software applications that collect information from Amazon and also track product cost information. These can be useful data sources as well, but they are also what I call open systems. Open systems are not reconciled with the financial data source like your bank or credit card statement, so there are many opportunities for this information to be erroneous. Be sure to watch your inventory bank account for the first 2 or 3 months to ensure that you are adequately funding the account and that the money is accumulating at a proper rate for your next inventory buy. Your inventory bank account will not lie. If you are under allocating to this account, you will not have enough funds to make your next purchase. You will have to borrow from your operating account, use a credit card, or take a loan. If you are committed to profit first, you want to work your business away from borrowing and towards self-funding. Many sellers are looking for growth to grow really quickly, and buying inventory seems to be the yellow brick road. However, using borrowed funds to grow inventory can create more problems than it solves. The dangers of borrowing for inventory purchases. Sometimes sellers believe their only option is to borrow in order to purchase inventory. In fact, many of our new clients rely on loans and credit cards, particularly to bridge slow periods. They make the minimum payments, then they get additional loans to buy more inventory. They use the proceeds from the sale of the inventory to fund their operating expenses. Many times they do not pay themselves, but happily invest in new apps or training to run their businesses. This becomes a vicious cycle that inevitably ends with the cash coming in is insufficient to service the credit card debt and no other loan sources available. One of my clients based in Australia was starting Profit First and concerned because he always paid his credit card with sales from future payout. It was a gamble that the inventory would sell. On the day his credit card company decided to lower his credit limit by $75,000, he understood why Profit First approach was more important. He had to rely on his existing sales to pay his credit card. He made drastic cuts in operating expenses to ensure that he could pay off the credit card and start to build his war chest for future growth. The first few calls we had together were about borrowing money to grow faster. After the credit reduction, he saw the benefit of setting up the funds aside so that what he sold in order to have funds to pay for the next order. Even if you continue to use credit cards for inventory purchases, make sure you can pay off your cards with funds present in your inventory account at the time that you order. Carol describes her process. For inventory, my supplier requires payment by check. This makes it even more critical for me to have enough funds in my inventory account so that I can pay the invoices on time and not bounce checks or have to pull funds from other accounts. I pay my operating expenses with my credit card twice a month and pay whatever the current balance is on the 10th and the 25th. Profit First has put Carol in control. Do you have the profit margin to repay a loan and set aside funds to replenish your order? It's a tall order if you are also depending on the business to provide you with a paycheck. Chris Potter from Amazon's 5-Star Seller Society explains the concerns related to using credit card particularly Amazon loans, very well. The payback terms of an Amazon loan are significantly different than a line of credit, and different strategies should be used based on the type of loan that you have. Amazon loans typically require you to pay back the entire amount in equal chunks over the term of the loan. This is very similar to a secured loan you'd receive from a bank, usually used for equipment. With a line of credit, you usually only have to pay the interest each month, and you can pay it down as your business dictates. For monthly planning purposes, you can somewhat expect the line of credit money will always be there. Due to this, you can plan to reorder items as necessary and can effectively add the full line of credit to your inventory purchasing budget. For an Amazon loan, due to the quick repayment, it makes it difficult to reorder anything that sells through if you want to ensure the loan is fully paid off when it's due. Amazon loans tend to work best for scenarios where you need to buy a large quantity of product at one time and will sell through the inventory as the loan needs to be paid off. This is perfect for one-time large liquidation buys or discontinued items. For regular replenishable items, Amazon loans are not exactly ideal because you can't guarantee that you'll have the cash to reorder when you're low. Too many people take out an Amazon loan, spend all the money up front, and then keep attempting to spend more money on product reorders as if the money will always be there. Then ends up being a trap because they're going to have to struggle to have enough to pay off the Amazon loan. Near the end, in a lot of cases, it's almost necessary to take out a new Amazon loan, assuming one is offered again, just to stay afloat. They are effectively treating Amazon loan like it's a line of credit, when in fact the terms are quite different. Any way you look at it, if you are preparing to take on debt, make sure you have a specific plan for the type of debt you are taking on and execute that plan properly. Chris Potter isn't saying there's no room to be a profitable business and borrow money. What he's saying is that money should be borrowed wisely and managed carefully if you want to avoid being overwhelmed by debt. Jeremy described the stress he's seen when friends have used loans. I've had friends who had gone that route. They get caught in the trap and there's nothing left at the end of the day. In fact, they're behind. It's an ugly cycle, the downfall of scaling. They plan to scale up as fast as possible, launch a bunch of products, cash out as a millionaire. It doesn't always play out like people hope it will. It's interesting because you have the added bonus of peer pressure where you think, this guy has $1 million sales. Now he's at 1.5 million. Now he's at 5 million. Yeah, I'm going to do that too. But it comes with a big price. You have to make sure you're prepared. You borrow money now. Let's say you put out $100,000 to buy inventory because you took out a loan. But again, in the Amazon game, what's your real profit margin? Like 20 to 22%, 25% maybe pre-tax? At that point, you're going to have to place an order before you've actually recouped any costs. You're that much further from turning a real profit. Not only can inventory bought with borrowed funds eat away at your profits, it can also eat away at your motivation and your self-esteem. Debt is stressful. Inventory, the profit first way. In business, as in life, things rarely go as planned. That's why, in addition to setting aside funds to replenish stock, our clients build their inventory accounts to plan for the unexpected, such as Amazon losing inventory. Carol explains that e-commerce sellers should plan on dealing with missing inventory from time to time. She elaborates, Amazon has probably lost everybody's inventory at some point. If they admit it, they will eventually refund it for you. In the meantime, you've got to scramble to get new inventory produced and shipped. It's really helpful to have some money in the bank for inventory for these kinds of unexpected things. In addition to having extra cash in the bank account to allow her to make another purchase, Carol made some changes to minimize the risk of lost inventory. I changed to only shipping one SKU and not shipping combined SKUs because it's a lot harder for Amazon to misplace your inventory into the wrong SKU if the box only contains one thing. She explained, I'd rather send in smaller quantities frequently because that way, if there's a problem, it's on a smaller scale. The other good reason to ship small is that Amazon is increasing their storage charges. They want to discourage somebody shipping a year's worth of product. When you combine a sound inventory replenishment strategy with the thoughtful, effective purchasing and shipping decisions, you're on the path to profitability. Earlier, we learned that managing inventory is Mark's biggest challenge. After 2.5 years of implementing Profit First, he has a new strategy. Mark said, "So now that I have some cash flow to help me when I'm in a cash crunch, I actually, right now, is a good example. We placed an order for my top 7 or 8 products to have 3 months buffer inventory in a warehouse in China. With that inventory, we'll be able to smooth out sales spikes that I can't predict. Or maybe I can start doing lightning deals on Amazon." The important thing is that buffer gives me options, because for me, being out of stock is a horrible feeling. It's like you lose money and you lose rankings. There's so many things you have to do to get back to where you were, and that is very expensive. To create a buffer, I think we placed an order of around $60,000, and I only paid 30% down. It was an unexpected expense, and I had enough money in my accounts. In this case, it was an account that we called the vault, which is just extra money to use to grow your business. Mark now understands just how critical it can be to have cash reserves rather than having to borrow huge sums of money to buy inventory. He mentions the vault. As you read further, you will learn how and why to set up a vault of your own. Your action step for this chapter: know your numbers. Compare your return on investment on your products to the gross margins on your profit and loss. Are they similar? If not, what is causing this difference? Calculate the economics of one unit and begin using that as another data point for your purchasing decisions. So guys, that is chapter 3. So we learned a lot about inventory and return on investment in that chapter. Next week, we will be reading chapter 4, the foundational Profit First bank accounts for e-commerce business. So what we're saying here, just a little preview, we have your basic accounts that you use in Profit First, and she's going to tweak those a little so that you can run your e-commerce business a little bit more efficiently. So thank you so much for being here today. If you're watching on the replay, don't forget to comment and make a shout out, and I will respond. So talk to you guys later. Bye.